So what is jogging? Yeah, jogging has been around long before robots came around. Jogging is when we move motors, electrical motors, in bursts to hit something into position. Manually moving the robot with a T-spindle. And we can move the robot using what we call a coordinate system, which we're really going to have to understand. All the robots, some of them have more, none of them have less, is we can jog the robot using what we call the joint coordinate system. We can jog the robot using what we call the world coordinate system. We can jog it using the tool coordinate system, and we can jog it using user. And let me back up here for a second. This is your textbook for the course. So I'm going to course content, or trying to anyway. And then I'm going to go to reference material. And this is on your syllabus brief. And right here it says basic theory. This is the book for the course. So you are responsible for this. And currently we are down into microcomputer basics. You're responsible for that. Memory. And what we're going to deal with now, booting the computer, all this terminology that we'll use. Industrial robot basics, you should already have that in your power sources. You should already understand that. The actual controller itself, we've talked about. Backing up the controller, we haven't talked a little bit about that. What is a backup, by the way? Anybody know what a backup is? In computers, what's backup? What does that mean? Well, there's a lot of difference between saving and there's a lot of difference between a backup. A backup means, a true backup means we save everything on a transportable medium. And we don't leave that transportable media in the unit itself. So as soon as we back up, we take that unit out and we put it in a safe place. Banks were required to keep two backups of their computers. One of them they kept somewhere on site in a vault. The other backup had to be on a remote site. So banks had to do that every night. Because if their bank came in and got wiped out by a hurricane or a tornado, they would have a chance of doing what? Going to the other site and getting. So backups are not supposed to be, so making copies on the unit itself is not a backup. Because if the controller goes out and you replace the controller, then you've lost everything. But if the controller goes out and I've kept a backup on a USB drive or a compact flash drive somewhere, then I can buy a new controller and do what? And we call it restoring. So if you hadn't backed up your computer at home, you're not very smart. In fact, one of the first things it does when you install a new operating system is tell you to create what we call a restore, a backup disk. So I've got one of those at my house. So if my computer crashes, and of course I keep multiple copies. When I was writing my textbook, so I wrote a book, by the way, and it was published. And I lost the folder. The folder was lost. I had something happened. It came up and said it was corrupted. It says, "Do you want to repair?" I said, "I want to repair the hard drive." And when I repaired it, the whole folder that whole textbook was in was gone.
Oh. You have to save it forever?
Yes, I did. I would have been stupid if I wouldn't. I worked for a computer company for a while, and we had a guy literally bring in his hard drive, his computer, and he was crying. He said his hard drive crashed, and his whole business was on that computer. He didn't know who owed him money, and he didn't know who he owed money to. And it was crashed. There was nothing we could do. We couldn't save it at all. But it was his fault. We had a lady over here work for, she was doing an application, a reapplication for a grant for student support. It's funded by a grant. So tutors get paid from a grant. And her computer crashed while she was doing it, and she lost that whole thing. She'd been working on it for I don't know how long. And guess what she hadn't been doing? She hadn't been backing it up. So I've got several versions of this thing right here around. So we're getting down here into the section where it talks the teach pendant, user levels, which we'll talk about later. We're kind of, and then the actual robot itself, the battery backup, absolute encoders, which we talked a little bit about that, about the robot batteries. This talks about master and calibrating, and this is where we're at right now. We're going to deal with jogging the robot. So if you don't like to read that, if you don't like to read stuff, then you're going to be screwed in this class. So it talks about the 4 modes all these robots can be jogged in. We can jog at joint, we can jog whirl, we can jog tool, or we can jog user. Another thing we need to understand is that when you jog a robot, the speed is limited to the speed of a safe jog. So when you jog these robots, you'll never be able to jog them at their maximum speed. The fastest you can jog it is 250 millimeters per second, which is around 10 inches per second. They've proven that if the robot hits you at that speed, you're fast enough to get your hand off the button, or you're fast enough to get out of the way. Usually when we teach a robot, we have to have the ability to be in the work cell with the robot. You'll understand that. So it's hard to put something 5 millimeters from a surface if you're 50 feet away from it. So one of the most dangerous times is when you write programs and you're in the work cell with the robot. So that's why they limit the speed to the maximum speed of 250 millimeters per second. So when you jog the robot, you got a little percentage thing up there that you can set a percentage. Of course, when you're jogging the robot, it's going to be a percentage of 250 millimeters per second. Everybody understand that? So one of your settings on your robot, on your teach pendant, is speed. A coordinate system, each axis is jogged. So we got joint coordinate system. And the key that you select the coordinate system on is usually labeled COORD, right? For coordinates. We'll have to look at it. You'll have to figure it out on which robot. Some of them use little icons where you select. The KUKA has little icons that you select which one. The FANUC has a coordinates key that you hit, and a little menu will pop up showing you which one you have selected. The Motoman, it puts little icons, but you have a little key that you do it. And the ABB uses touchscreen. It uses icons to select different methods of jog. One that we use every once in a while is called a joint jog. Each axis is jogged individually using keys or joysticks on the teach pendant. A plus-minus direction indicated on the plus-minus direction is usually indicated on the teach pendant. The ABB doesn't do it that way. Well, we'll show you all that when we get over it. The ABB robot utilizes a joystick and jogs in the direction of the position of the joystick relative to the front of the robot. Now, the front of the robot is usually considered to be the away from the cables. So wherever the cables come into the robot that actually comes in, if you're on the opposite end, you're standing in the front of the robot. Everybody understand that? So when we do a joint jog, you are responsible for jogging each axis, which gets very hard to do, especially if you're trying to maintain the orientation of the tool. Everybody okay there? So let's go over and look at them. No, let's look at all the methods and we'll call the jog to this. Then we'll come back and look at this. So one thing you got to learn right off the bat on a robot and we'll look at this, is which direction the robot's going to move when you press that key. Y'all understand that? So it's not one of these things. I get the ability to do that because I'm dealing with 5 robots, right? Or 4 robots. But when you get over there and I say I want to jog it that way, when you hit that button, you better do what? Better jog that way, right? You understand that? So this is the keys on the FANUC. So if I'm looking at the front, so if I'm looking at it from the front of the robot, then J1, if I hit plus, it's going to go to the right. If I hit minus, it's going to go to the left. J2, if I hit minus, the shoulder's going to go up. If I hit plus, it's going to do what? It's going to come down. And then if I in the elbow, it's just opposite. If I hit 4, it's going to rotate. Minus is going to be counterclockwise, right? Plus is going to be clockwise. J5, which is the wrist, right? Y'all see that? So I'm not going to go over these. So what I did is I gave it to you for the KUKA and I gave it to you for the FANUC. FANUC and the Motorman, and then the KUKA. Now, why didn't I do it with the ABB? Well, the ABB uses a joystick. So the KUKA, the FANUC, and the Motorman have keys. You have 2 keys. One of them's marked plus, one of them's marked minus. They're right beside each other. Are we okay? And the Motorman, I already told you, the ABB, if you're in the front of it, you move the joystick in which direction you want it to go. But you have to be standing in front of the robot. Everybody okay? Not the Motorman, the ABB. Did I say ABB? Okay, so joint jog. Everybody understand joint jog? So you're gonna have 12 keys on the keyboard for the KUKA, the FANUC, the Motorman. You got 12 keys. One of them's labeled plus, one of them's labeled minus. Each set of keys are going to be beside each other, and they're going to correspond to an axis. Everybody understand that? Y'all have any questions? Yes or no? Any problems? Okay. I didn't remember I had done this, so that's nice of me. So this might be a way to start off with, but what I want you to do is get very familiar. You're going to play around with these and get very familiar with which direction the robot's going to go. Now look on the KUKA. So J1 is backwards from the Motorman and the FANUC. J2 is the same, but J3 is opposite. J4 is the same, J5 is opposite, and J6 is the same. So the KUKA is made in the Netherlands. I said they're backwards. The FANUC and the Motorman are both made in Japan. KUKA's made in the Netherlands. No, where's KUKA made? ABB's made in the Netherlands. KUKA is made in Germany, I think. Huh? Germany. When Mercedes built their plant down there, they put Japanese robots. They put all FANUC robots in there. I think what they were trying to do is they was trying to put equipment in there that most Americans was trained in. FANUC is a very popular robot in the USA. So they put in FANUC robots and they put in Allen Bradley controllers. And Allen Bradley PLC is a predominant PLC in the United States. When it come time to change their robots, they changed all of them to what? KUKAs. Except for their paint line. Their paint line still runs ABBs. What I understand from a company that we're dealing with, from what I understand, they're going to change over to Siemens PLCs. Siemens are made in Germany. So that's what I understand. Don't take that. So normally, just about every place that teaches PLCs in the United States teach Allen Bradley PLCs. So Siemens is going to start moving in, so we're going to have to start teaching Siemens PLCs. Cartesian, 3D Cartesian.
Go back. I'm sorry, I'm finished right now. Oh, move down. I didn't.
You can print it off. Aren't these slides available? Okay, then I'll upgrade it. I don't have the newest version. I'll put it up there for you. That way y'all can print them off. Or just learn it. I would rather you learn it while you jog the robot. So we're going to start jogging the robot, and we're going to set the jog speed to 10%. So that means that the robot's going to be out in the center, so that means you're going to be able to play around with it without worried about collision, because we're going to set the jog speed so low. So what I would rather you do, Tim, is to do what? Learn it from actually using the robot. And then later on, by the way, in robotics, collisions are not an option. Everybody understand that? But we understand y'all learning, so when we first start learning, we're going to do everything on top of a cardboard box. And why do we do that? So if you do collide, but as we move along, we're going to start working on the surface. So one of the labs you'll do is you'll have the robot write your name. You can't write it on the box, you'll write it on the surface. And it'll follow lines and stuff like that, but when we first start jogging them, picking stuff up, you're going to do it on a box. Cartesian. The Cartesian system was not developed for robotics. We have robotics that uses the Cartesian system. This idea was first developed in 1637. Now what we do on the Cartesian system is, first of all, we establish a point of origin. And this is true. So when we have frames, so when we start talking about frames, frames are reference to an origin point. So when we're doing a joint jog, it has nothing to do with the Cartesian system. Nothing. You are responsible for moving each axis. When we switch over to the Cartesian system, one of our Cartesian systems, the controller moves the axis. What you do is you specify a direction that you want the robot to move. Now what we have is we have a vertical axis, which in the Cartesian system is referred to as Z. So if I switch over to my Cartesian system and I hit plus Z, the robot's going to go up. If I hit minus Z, the robot's going to go down. Back and forth, or in and out, so this is the front of the robot right here. In and out is Z. So if I wanted to move toward me, I hit plus Z. If I wanted to go away from me, I hit minus Z. Y'all understand that? Okay. Then the Y direction is left to right, looking at the robot. If I want the robot to move to the right, I'll press plus Y. If I wanted to move to the left, I'll press minus Y. And what the robot is going to do is going to maintain the orientation of the tool. Which is really, really neat. So now I'm not going to be, you won't be concerned with which axis to move. All you're concerned with is which direction do you want the robot to go in. So this is, normally when we jog the robot, we jog it in one of the Cartesian systems. The only time we use the joint is to reorient one or two axes. So very seldom do we use the joint jog, because you're responsible for 6 axes. That makes sense? So we have 6 keys. We have X, Y, Z. So the keys turn from joint 1, joint 2, joint 3, joint 4, joint 5, joint 6 to X, Y, Z. You have 2 directions. You have plus, you have minus. And then we have what we call roll, pitch, yaw. Roll, pitch, yaw. So if I've got my tool set out here, this came from airplanes. So if you ever flew an airplane or even a helicopter, you'd have to learn what roll, pitch, yaw is. So we've got what they call out on the end of the wings, on the back tail, we have what we call an elevator. An elevator we use that to change the pitch of the airplane. So pitch would be like this. Everybody understand? Yaw would be like this. So they use the tail to yaw the plane. They don't use the tail to turn the plane. They use the tail to yaw the plane. Have you ever seen some of these planes coming in for a landing when they got a crosswind and the plane is actually flying like this? It's not turning. It's still flying that direction right there. All they did was move the rudder and cause the plane to yaw. And then that way they're moving into the wind, and right before they land, they'll whip the tail back around and straighten the plane up. So what they're doing is they're yawing the plane. They're not trying to make the plane turn. They're just trying to make it change direction. And we don't deal with what they call the ailerons. The ailerons on the outside, in fact we do. For the ailerons, if you flip the ailerons around, you ever seen a plane flying and it just flips over like that? Well, what do you call that? You call that a roll, right? You understand? So a roll, so this would be roll, this would be pitch, and this would be yaw. So we got 6 keys on the keyboard on a Cartesian system. We got X, Y, Z, and then we got roll, pitch, yaw. Everybody understand that? And we'll go look at those. So if we switch to a Cartesian system, we're not concerned with an axis. All we're concerned with is a what? A direction. So it makes the robot real easy to jog. They all jog exactly the same. And plus Z is up, minus Z is down. Plus Y is to the right, minus Y is to the left. Plus X is toward me, minus X is away from me if I'm sitting in front of the robot. I don't have to worry about which axis. The controller moves all the axes to maintain the orientation. So I don't say which way do I need to go, and it's real easy to learn. Originally what they do, so this is what we call world coordinates. World coordinates, the origin is set in the center of the base. The teach pendant controls used to jog axis 1, 2, and 3 are used to do what? X, Y, Z. The teach pendants used to jog the orientation axis are going to do what? They're going to do your roll, pitch, yaw. This is where it varies between the robots. Which one is roll, which one's pitch, and which one's yaw. But these guys right here are exactly the same on every robot. What we do sometimes is while you're trying to learn it is we use what we call the right-hand rule of robotics. So you stand behind the robot. You can do it in the front, but normally it's real hard to do your wrist. If you stand behind the robot and you point at the robot, this is Z, this is plus Z, this is plus X, and this is plus Y. That makes sense? And we'll show y'all that when we get over there. This is not, and you'll see a question that says the right-hand rule establishes the Cartesian system. That's false. We use this to determine the Cartesian, right? Cartesian's been around since what, 1637? So the right-hand rule of robotics is just what we do is identify the directions of the Cartesian system. That makes sense? So Z plus is tool up, Z minus is tool down, X plus is towards you, X minus is away from you, Y plus is to the right, Y minus is to the left. And after a while, that's what you learn, and you don't use that garbage anymore. You very seldom see me do this. Because why? Because I know the direction of X, Y, Z. Okay. So we got any questions on world coordinates? Yes, no? Huh? Are the X, Y, Z directions the same on all the industrial robots? Yes. That's what makes those. That's what makes it nice. Roll, pitch, yaw. Okay. And I'll show you an airplane here. Are y'all okay on roll, pitch, yaw? So what's pitch? What's yaw? And then what's roll? This is the KUKA. I'll make sure I put this up there. So the KUKA's ABC. The FANUC's called ZYX. And then the FANUC and the Motorman do the same thing. Of course, the ABB uses a joystick, right? Are we okay? I don't think I've uploaded these units yet. Tool center point, a point on the end of the tool or free space that the user wants the robot to position, set in the center of the mounting flags by the robot manufacturer, can be configured by the end user. We have two methods. We can do what we can teach it, or we can do what they call direct entry. Robot records positions and speeds are recorded at the tool center. Don't understand that. Tool coordinates. The pitch pendant control used to jog axis 1, 2, 3 in joint coordinates jogs the tool Cartesian relative to the tool center. So now what's going to happen is right now we put this down at the base, right? You'll understand. Now this is going to move up to the tool. So if I've got the tool at an angle like this, and I jog Z, it's going to move in that angle. If I've got my tool cocked like that, and I jog Y, it's going to move in that angle. So your Cartesian is relative to the tool, not the base of the robot, relative to the tool. And this gets really important. So if I'm up here and I'm trying to take a screw and I'm trying to insert it into a hole, and the hole's at an angle right there, well, if I did the Cartesian, I'd have to go plus Z, I'd have to go what? I'd have to go minus Z, I'd have to go minus Z, plus X, minus Z, plus X. If I have it in the tool coordinates, I could come down here and orient my tool, and then if I jog that sucker Z, it's going to maintain the orientation of the tool. Right? You understand? So this is a very powerful job. So over here on the KUKA robot, we'll show you all a program where the robot comes over here and grabs the tool out of that stand and pulls it back. Well, when it pulls it back, when we tried to pull it back jogging it, we wanted to jog oriented to the tool, right? Understand? The teach pendant control used to jog the X, Y, Z, roll, pitch, yaw is the same. Y'all understand that? So the only thing we're changing is we're changing our XYZ reference to the base over to XYZ relative to the tool. So it depends on which way the tool tilts. Depends on what XYZ equals to. Are the jog directions for tool coordinates the same? No, they're not. This is where you're going to have to figure out the robot. So you saw just going down through our robots, when we did roll, pitch, yaw, they were different. Are y'all over there texting? What y'all doing? Huh? Looking at the slide? Okay. So here's the FANUC, there's the KUKA, and there's the Motorman. with the torch pointing down. If you swing the torch up, everything's going to swap around, right? So the KUKA would be, I can't even do it. So the KUKA plus Z would take the tool down, oriented to itself. It would take the tool, minus Z would be plus up, right? Minus X would be to the left, plus X would be to the right, plus Y would be towards you, minus Y would be away from you. Okay. Over on the FANUC, notice X, Y, Z is the same. They just change X. X would be towards you, Y would be to your, Y is to your left. Okay. And of course, normally when we reference this, if I was going to do it like the robot, then it would be pointed up like this, right? You understand? Notice the tool is pointing down, right? And the Motoman, so the Motoman and the FANUC are the same because they're both made in Japan. The KUKA is a little different. And this came out of the manual, by the way. These jog directions are out of the are in the manual for you. Any questions? Yes or no?
FANUC and Motoman on the X axis are pretty different. And it says plus.
Yeah, so they're not the same. So here, this is, I don't have my glasses on, sorry. So they are different. So it's still, X is still this. This is the same for X, Y, Z, for world. This is the same because it looks different, but remember, the robot is pointing Z up, right? So Z is still going to move in this direction. So if I was trying to do the right-hand rule, this one would be right, this one would be right, and this one right here would be backwards. See, so I'm putting plus X, Z relative to the tool. So on the FANUC robot, if the torch is pointing down, and so I would point my hand down, my right hand rule down, then plus Z would be what? Down. And plus X would be what? Out. But what's happening is this guy right here swaps around. On the Motoman robot, it looks like it might be oriented, I don't know, like this. No, because this would be plus X, down would be minus Y. This would be plus Y, so it's backwards too. But the Z would be the same, right? Understand? So it looks like on one of them, they do like this, pointing away from the tool center point. On the other one, it looks like they do like this. See what I'm talking about? So on this one, it looks like they're oriented Z in this direction, plus Z in that direction. On this, they're orienting plus Z in this direction. And if that's correct, then that means if I took plus Z and pointed it down, then plus X would be in this direction right there. That makes sense? But still, plus Y is opposite on every one of them. Now on this one, on the KUKA, not only does the Y change, it actually changes directions. So it moves like, yeah, so it's like this. And so this becomes plus Y, this becomes plus Z, and then this finger right here would represent plus X. So what's happening is these two right here are swapping on every one of them. But this is something that you would have to learn for the robot that you're dealing in. And they're all different. And the only reason I can determine is that you sell a robot in Japan and you make it in Japan, you probably want all your robots to be the same. But then we move into the KUKA, it's made in Germany. And of course the ABB is made in the Netherlands. There are no robots produced, industrial robots built in the U.S. We buy a bunch of them, but we don't build them. What you can do with user coordinates is you determine the direction of X, Y, Z. So you teach X, you teach Y, and then Z is calculated depending on where you set your origin at. Does that make sense? So if I teach my frame all the way down on the unit, then that would be my origin. If I teach it up in the air, then my origin would be right here. Anything above that would be plus, and anything below that would be minus. But what we can do is, if let's say I come up and I have I have an ABB robot mounted on the floor, and then I have another one mounted on the wall. Well, when I jog my robot Cartesian, I don't want my operator to try to figure out that X is now this way and Y is that way, right? You understand? So what we could do is we could reteach the user frame, and instead of using world, they could use user, and then the robot would plus Z would be up, minus Z would be down, plus X would be plus Y would be to the right, and plus X would be toward me, right? Does that make sense? So user frames we can do if the robot is oriented wrong, or if the robot is mounted at a slant, or if I'm always working with a surface that's slanted. If I was to flip my robot and mount it from the ceiling, then everything would be backwards, right? So what we'll do Tuesday is we'll go over there and I will jog the robots for you. We'll look at the tool coordinates. We don't have user coordinates set up. We might have one set on the FANUC. We'll see. We'll come in and then we'll assign you a robot. We'll talk about the manuals, how we get to the manuals on the robot, and then we'll work on our first lab. Our first lab is you're going to actually jog a robot. You're going to jog it frame. You're going to jog it joins. You're going to jog it world. You'll jog it tool. Now, if you don't set a user frame, the user frame and the world frame are the same. That makes sense? Okay.